Of course, the red light worked when we tested it. Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah, this is a little intimidating. Well, thank you. My name is Jennifer Bruckner. I'm the Executive Director for Industry Initiatives for Science and Math Education. Thank you for welcoming me here today. What I was asked to do, and you can modify that in any way that you like, is to provide an overview of the work that we've been doing in the San Francisco Bay Area, tell you about the programs that we're operating that are linking business and education, and then leave lots of time for questions and answers. So if that sounds like an okay plan to you, I'll launch into that. Let me see, where's a better place to stand? Well, that's pretty hard to see, but IISME was founded back in 1984. Do you want me to stop?
Yeah, let me just...
Is this... Well, should I stand in one place? Would that make life easier?
There you go. No. It'll pick you up. There you go.
Oh, okay.
If you turn your back to it, it'll lose you. That's all.
And why did you choose to test this on me? Anyway, so our organization was founded back in 1984, so we've been doing this work almost 30 years. We were founded by a group of 13 companies in the San Francisco Bay Area in conjunction with the Lawrence Hall of Science at the University of California at Berkeley. It was inspired by the fact that the business executives were really concerned about the quality of science and math education in our schools and what that meant for their future competitiveness. They realized that they had all kinds of resources within their organizations, all these smart engineers, scientists, all these things that could be leveraged to deal with some of the challenges that the schools and teachers were facing. So the lead was actually a vice president at Lockheed, but other companies that were really actively involved include Hewlett-Packard, IBM, SBC, a whole bunch of others, and they were working in partnership with a Nobel laureate scientist, Glenn Seaborg, from the University, UC Berkeley. And together, they looked at all kinds of different options. They flew all around the country, talked to all kinds of people, which in 1984, there wasn't a lot of discussion about STEM, but they were trying to figure out the best way to build a bridge between industry and education in a way that would be meaningful, leverage the resources they had, and be meaningful for the education system. And to that end, they launched the Industry Initiatives for Science and Math Education, which my first recommendation if you start a program is don't give it such a complicated name. I can tell you cold calls are really hard. People hang up before you've even finished the name. And the IISME Summer Fellowship Program. So IISME exists to address the critical need for a highly skilled workforce. So I feel like I'm sort of singing to the choir here because these are things you're already thinking about in Lake County as well. We know that we need students that have a strong capability in science, technology, and engineering. We know that we have a shortage in those areas. And that the businesses certainly in California and the San Francisco Bay Area and where I'm located, which is right in the heart of Silicon Valley, absolutely rely on those kinds of highly skilled workers. And that is the motivation for the business community to partner with us in the work that we're doing. They set IISME up as a nonprofit. We call ourselves an industry education partnership. And we work to empower and equip the teachers so that they can better prepare their students for the job of the future. So that's basically what we're about. We're based in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we run 3 programs. I'm going to quickly talk about 2 of them that are less relevant to the work you're doing and spend most of the time on the Summer Fellowship Program, which is the internship program for teachers. We're housed inside of a high-tech company that provides us free rent. IISME in its 29 years has never paid rent or bought its own computers or any of those things, so it's really a nice partnership. We're housed inside of Agilent Technologies, which is a spin-off from HP. First, the Summer Fellowship Program I'll just discuss really briefly at first and then talk about the other 2 programs and then get back to the Summer Fellowship Program. So it was first offered in 1985 and the 13 companies that launched IISME all opened their doors up and hosted 49 teachers their first summer. So it started off with a bang. There was no staff at all at IISME. These executives were sitting, including David Packard, were sitting around a big room, just shared out teacher resumes. They just sort of picked who was taking who, and off they went. started out, since there was no staff, the piece about connecting the experience to the curriculum and how to effectively translate that back into the classroom, that was handled by the folks at the Lawrence Hall of Science at UC Berkeley. After 25 successful years in San Francisco, we started expanding very modestly into Southern California. That's been an experiment that I can honestly say isn't going as well as I'd like. It's moving slowly. But so for 3 years, we've been providing fellowships to teachers in San Diego, and for 2 years to teachers in Los Angeles. And those, just to give you a sense, that's an area that's 500 miles away from where we're headquartered. So we're needing to leverage expertise in that area and also use technology and Skype and other things to figure out how to make that work as well far away as it does where we can all see each other face to face. The program's been really successful. Over 2,500 engineers have gotten engaged with it. Almost 400 companies and foundations and universities are participating with us. We've now provided, update, 3,100 fellowships for teachers from almost 700 schools in over 120 districts. So we serve a large region. We serve geographically large and really diverse in terms of the student population and the needs of those communities. So far, the IISME Inspired Teachers have already positively impacted over 2.2 million students. So there's a lot of leverage in working with teachers because you can reach a lot of students. We're considered a national model. The Business Higher Education Forum has recognized us as a highly effective program. And in addition, we were selected recently to join the new 100K in 10 movement, which is President Obama's call for 100,000 new highly qualified science and math teachers. And that is a really interesting movement that started by raising $20 million and recruiting 70 partner organizations across the country. And we were nominated for that by one of our largest foundation funders. So that's really interesting. We're looking forward to getting a little piece of that 20 million. Hasn't happened yet, but I'm optimistic. But to tell you most about the Summer Fellowship Program, it provides teachers with exposure to the workplace that they're preparing their students for. The challenge that we have is that, and you have it too, I'm sure, is that we're looking to our teachers to prepare our future workforce. And for the most part, they haven't been outside of academia. So when kids are asking, what do I ever need to know this for? Or, I'm really strong in math. What opportunities are there for me? The teachers are often challenged to have the information they want to provide. They want to provide it, but they don't always have the exposure that allows them to bring in those real-world examples for their students. It's designed as an 8-week fellowship program, which is a challenge. Teachers, we serve hundreds of districts, and they all are on different calendars and have different lengths of summer. But we have standard fellowship dates from mid-June to mid-August, and then we flex depending on the needs of the particular teachers. We also provide year-round support to the teachers as they're incorporating these new ideas into their standards-based curriculum. So a typical IISME summer, we have 400 or 500 teachers applying for the program. It's very competitive. They don't all get placed. 40 to 50 different organizations agree to host teachers. Some of them host 1 or 2 teachers at a time. Our biggest sponsors host 20 to 25 teachers per summer. You can imagine they're our favorite. On top of that, we have about 20 or 25 corporate and private foundations that provide additional funding. I'll explain a little bit later. We have a fee-for-service model. So the companies agreeing to host the teachers are not only opening their doors, finding a suitable project and a mentor, but they're also providing the majority of the cost of the program. So finding 50 organizations willing to host between 160 and 190 teachers a year is no small job. The teachers earn $7,200 stipend over the summer for their 8 weeks of work. They also earn $1,000 in grants that are tied to the, I feel like I'm standing in the wrong place here, that are tied to the development and implementation of what we call an education transfer plan. And that's their standards-based peer review curriculum that they develop over the summer to bring back to their students in the fall. So they spend 90% of their time working on real projects for their sponsors, and that's really important. There's value in job shadowing, there's value in visiting a company and talking, doing job shadowing and things like that. But where the real transformational effect comes in is getting in there, working side by side with the STEM practitioners on real projects and being part of the team. The teachers have support, so we look to our host organizations to provide the project, the meaningful oversight and guidance for the teachers. They're obviously in a very different foreign element over the summer. But then IISME provides the support that they need to translate that into an improved curriculum. We hire a cadre of peer coaches. Those are veteran classroom teachers who've held at least 2 IISME fellowships. And they are selected for having really strong leadership and curriculum development skills. So every teacher holding a fellowship has a peer coach, somebody that they meet right away at orientation, communicates with them regularly. They meet throughout the summer one-on-one with that peer coach, and they also meet together in what we call community groups that are sometimes subject specific, but since we serve such a large geographic region, it's often really focused on the geography of where they meet. And they meet over lunch and have organized, facilitated discussions. The teachers, in addition to interacting with each other face-to-face, they're also interacting online. We developed what we call the IISME community website. It was originally designed to be a place where they can build their curriculum. And so it's an online curriculum development site, as well as there's chat rooms and other ways to interact. So they build their curriculum online. As they get further along in the process, they're able to flag it for when they're ready for their peer coach to review it. Then once that steps happen, they can flag it for when they're ready for peer review. This is really a valuable part of the program because, as you know, some teachers are really strong curriculum developers, others are less so, and regardless of where they are on that spectrum, our goal is to move them further along in the development of really high-quality curriculum. So as a result, since they're working on this website after the summer when all the companies have signed off that there's no proprietary information, et cetera, it turns into published curriculum that's accessible to anyone. And teachers, it's in a format that teachers can customize it for their own classroom use. So it's really a great resource. So most of the fellowships that we offer are in corporate settings, but about 1/3 of them are in research settings. When we first were founded, it was all about the corporate connection. But what we found over the years is that there's also a high level of interest in research-focused fellowships, especially for secondary science teachers, when they're really wanting to get new subject matter expertise and kind of fall back in love with why they cared about that science in the first place. So we partner with some leading universities in our region, which include Stanford University, UC Berkeley. We also have teachers at Department of Energy funded labs like the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and private research facilities like SRI International. Within those organizations, the teachers are holding their fellowships in every conceivable functional area. So we have teachers working in quality assurance, we have teachers in engineering, marketing, human resources, IT, you name it. If there's a department willing to host a teacher, we can find a way to make that a really meaningful connection for the teachers. Of course, we love it if the work they're doing is closely related to the subjects they're teaching. That doesn't always work out that way. Somebody might be working on a website or intranet or something at Cisco, and we still really value that experience because they're still getting a chance to see what that world looks like, to understand the importance of the soft skills, how people are in meetings, how they run meetings with agendas and action items. They get a chance to see how sometimes you're an individual contributor, sometimes you're the project lead, how you have to be able to stand up and present, you have to be able to strap on a microphone, work a thing, and do PowerPoint slides, all those kind of things that are really necessary for success in our sophisticated workforce, well beyond the subject matter that we're spending most of our time focused on. We've got successful partnership across all industry sectors. So a lot of work with the semiconductor industry because that's where we are. We're also working with all kinds of high-tech companies, software companies, internet companies, aerospace and defense. I don't know if you have much aerospace and defense in this region, but they're an excellent starting partner, I would recommend, because they, more than anybody, are concerned about the homegrown talent. Lockheed is our strongest partner. They host 20 teachers every summer. They've hosted 350 or so over all the years we've been operating. And they're especially concerned about it because, for the most part, they're relying on U.S. citizens for their workforce. So in San Francisco Bay Area and Silicon Valley, it's very diverse. We have a lot of foreign-born employees. Probably many of the companies have at least 50% of their employees are foreign-born. Many of their founders are foreign-born. So aerospace and defense, we find, is a really solid partner with us because they still are restricted because of the work they do to primarily U.S. citizens. The program's really yielding impressive results. I mean, it wouldn't be going on 28 years if it was just sort of a good idea. What we're finding, we've been around long enough, we've been able to do external evaluation, and back in 2001, we went all the way back to the teachers who held fellowships from 1985, so 15 years worth of the fellowships. We found that teachers were staying in teaching at much higher rates, and that really helped us address a concern that a lot of people had, because people were concerned with all the nice perks in the companies and, free Post-it notes, and now, at Google there's 19 free cafeterias and wheat germ smoothies and everything you could imagine. People were wondering, are you serving as a bridge between or a bridge out of education? And so that was a really important question for us to answer. We understood intuitively that we were re-energizing the teachers and that they were more excited about teaching. But the research showed that they actually leave teaching at far lower rates than their peers in the state and the nation. So that was a really important finding for us. Our teachers are also achieving national board certification at 3 times the rate of the other teachers in our region and service area. And the bottom bullet references work done at Columbia University, a sister program. We're not directly related in any way, but since it's sort of a small niche, this teacher internship business, we have done multi-site evaluations with the other programs that are operating. And Columbia, because they have students all in one school district and all the students have a high-stakes standardized science exam, and because all their fellowships are science-focused, they were able to correlate the teachers' participation in their science fellowships with student achievement on those standardized tests, and their students scored higher than the teachers of students who did not. They also participated in science clubs at much higher rates. And those findings were published a couple of years ago in Science magazine. So there's a lot, actually, information about the evaluation. I could bore you to tears probably with that, but we know that we're having a positive impact on teacher retention, on teacher leadership, national board certification, and also teacher performance in the classroom. We've done some work with principals and had them rate their teachers, both sort of pre and post, and the principals are some of our biggest fans because they see that the teachers come back completely re-energized, with lots of new ideas, and are really eager to implement those new ideas in the classroom. The teachers love it. They consistently say it's the best professional development they've ever had. 100% of the teachers say that they'd recommend it to their peers. Teachers, they don't just say that if they don't mean it. They really, really love the program. The money helps. Many of them admit afterwards, they don't admit when they're applying, but they admit afterwards that they did it because they really needed a summer job and the income. And, $8,200 is a nice salary bump. We live in a really high cost of living area. But afterwards, they realize it's actually the best professional development they've ever had. They have an increased understanding of the 21st century skills that their students need, and they have increased understanding of how to incorporate aspects of that into their school day so that they help the kids develop those 21st century skills. They also get a better understanding of how to prepare their students for the 21st century workplace. We think there's a lot of program beneficiaries with this kind of a model. It's the students, it's the teachers, it's the schools, it's the districts, it's the business community. So teachers tell us their teaching became more effective. They tell us their students are more engaged. They tell us they have experimented with new types of teaching strategies, and on and on and on. It's really the reason that I'm so passionate about this work and have been at this organization for 13 years now is it really works. It really, really works. The teachers are excited about it. They're able to translate that into updated curriculum, and it's making a real difference in our region. There's a lot of benefits for students. As a result of the teachers' participation, there's a lot more emphasis on teamwork and problem solving, a lot less about let me impart this information to you than helping you to develop those critical thinking skills that you're going to need on the job, because not too many of our jobs are focused on coming back and reciting information that we memorized while we were in school. It's really about addressing novel problems and being able to know how to do that. The teamwork piece is really interesting because, teachers see that they aren't all individual contributors working in a cube just doing their own thing. They actually have to work with a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds, skills, ethnic backgrounds, everything else. And so they start having their kids do a lot more teamwork. That's no longer seen as cheating. That's now seen as preparing them for the real world. So their lessons are infused with a lot more of those real world applications, and that makes it a lot more interesting to the kids. From those courses that weren't taught the way they should have been. If it's really abstract and you have no idea why you should care, you don't. And there's plenty of distractions for our kids that if they're not seeing the relevance, they're not going to be engaged. And when you're able to talk about how, this kind of a mathematical problem is used by NASA on the Mars rover, and I know that because I worked on the Mars rover this summer while I was at NASA. Suddenly the teachers are more interested and the kids are a lot more interested. There's also more effective use of computers and technology. It's changed over the time we've been running this program, but we have some really tech-savvy teachers and some that aren't. And when they realize that even the most basic entry-level positions in any of the organizations that are hiring in our region require you to be able to use computers, be able to use PowerPoint, Excel, do functions, all of that sort of thing, they realize that it's not a separate, technology isn't over here, it actually needs to be infused in everything we're doing. There's a raised awareness of careers and industry expectations. This is really important in California. I hope you're doing better at this in Ohio, but where we live, we actually have the dubious distinction of ranking dead last, 50th out of 50 states, on our ratio of career counselors to students. We've gone from having one of the most well-respected education systems to ranking 47th, 48th, it's pretty bad, in a lot of key metrics, and key metrics that really matter to the industries in our region. So that career counseling makes a big difference. Without our career counselors typically are focused on just making sure the kids, there might be 2 in a high school with 600-700 students, and they're focused on making sure the kids are registering in the class they need to get the class they need the next year to graduate. They're not saying, wow, you seem to really be interested in electronics and you have these skills. Maybe you want to consider this path or the other path. And also the schools are bolstered with new resources. Not only did the teachers come back with these great ideas, in addition to the $7,200 stipend they earn and the $1,000 grants associated with developing and implementing their new curriculum, we run a Fund for Innovation grant program. Because what happens, we find, is that teachers go back to school, they're all fired up, they can't wait to start doing this, that, and the other thing, and their school may not have the resources that they need for them to fully implement those new curriculum ideas. So the Fund for Innovation program allows the teachers to apply for up to an extra $1,000 for supplies or equipment that they need. And that's all the formal part, but there's a whole lot of informal things that happen. That teachers are really good for asking for things. And they're able to get leftover lab equipment from these biotech companies. The stuff that they don't need anymore is still often much nicer than what we have in our schools. They're getting used laptops, they're getting software programs, they're getting posters. I smile when I say it because I remember this one teacher at Lockheed that said, what can I have? What can I have? And they opened up like this closet full of stuff, and he told all the other 19 teachers, and they just cleared that thing out in about 10 minutes. There's a lot of benefits to sponsors. We have to sell, because of the way our program is set up as a fee-for-service model, we have to sell these teachers as great workers. And so we're not only selling the mission, that of course you need to give teachers exposure to what you're doing so that they can better prepare your future workers, but we also sell them as, I know that sounds tacky to use the word sell, but it's true, it's exactly what I do all the time, as cost-effective short-term workers, because they are. As you know, teachers have all kinds of skills. They come with at least a bachelor's degree. Most of the teachers who apply for IISME fellowships also have master's degrees. They have great organizational and communication skills. They're able to take complex ideas and break them down into small, manageable steps. They're able to test for learning and understanding. All the things that teachers do well are actually really transferable into the workplace. They also have maturity and a professional work status. We try not to pit ourselves against student internship programs, but when we're approaching companies about hosting teachers, if they have a program, it's more likely to be for students. And so we need to make the case that actually, while hosting students is fantastic and important also, that there's a lot of leverage in hosting teachers, because on average they're going to impact 4,000 students over the course of their career, and by working with one teacher instead of having 4,000 students running around your science lab, that's a good way to go. And that you're going to get a teacher who already knows how to show up for work on time, who already knows how to ask questions, who already knows how to work independently. And that's all really important, because everybody's really busy, and they don't, even if they think this is the best idea in the world, they don't need somebody dragging them down over the summer, because they already have way too much to do. We also make the case that it's a good opportunity for employee recognition. We work hard to get the companies featured in the Business Journal, the local newspapers, get features in the, whatever sort of media might be attractive to them, to have themselves and their logos and everything seen as investing in our education community. Something that I didn't really expect, the employee morale boost, but I hear it over and over. So people bring on this teacher, and the teacher is so excited about learning and wanting to work hard that it actually ends up rubbing off on the other people in the department. Lockheed says this all the time, that some people have gotten kind of ho-hum about the work that they're doing, and the teacher finds it so fascinating and so exciting that suddenly they kind of find it more interesting too. And there's a lot of support from those people that we call mentors, that are hiring managers, because in many cases they're parents too. So not only do they live in that community, have a vested interest in the quality of the schools, but it's a neat opportunity for them to get to know teachers too, because we hear a lot of, mostly negative stuff in the paper about teachers and how education's doing, and people love the opportunity to really meet those teachers and see how cool they really are. And they're really satisfied. And this is really important, because you'd think, okay, I'm doing this, it's the right thing to do, but I'm busy and it's a drain on my time, and how's this going to work out? But 99% of them, this is from last summer's program, but it's consistent year over year. It's always in the high 90s. They say that participating in the program was worthwhile for themselves, for their department, and for their organization. And they're talking about return on investment. They're not talking about the education transfer and all the loftier mission and focus reason for being. They're talking about, was this worth it, bang for the buck, having this teacher in my work group? Almost all of them would recommend their teacher for another fellowship or hire them back. And 97% were pleased with the quality of the work the teacher produced. And those of you who've had any experience with, well, most of us in any HR, 97% is pretty good. Especially if you're talking about 200 teachers. There's going to be a couple that aren't the hardest workers. There's also some organizations that don't hire as well. It's competitive, and they need to have a well-scoped project, and they need to pick the right teacher that's suited for it. So we consider that pretty good. We also get a lot of kudos about the support that the IISME staff provides. We serve as the teacher's employer over the summer. We do the orientation, we do the ergo training, we do the anti-harassment training, we do the timesheets, we have them on workers' comp. We try and make it as simple as possible for the companies who participate. Our funding model. This is how we survive. As I mentioned, we have a fee-for-service model. Our corporate hosts pay, it's going to be different by region, but this works in our region. The corporate hosts pay $13,000 per teacher that they host. $8,200 of that goes to the teacher, and the balance goes to offset the costs of the recruiting the companies, recruiting the teachers, supporting them, hiring the peer coaches, managing the curriculum development transfer, all of that. The exception to that $13,000, well, there's actually two. Companies can choose to serve as the employer if they want. most don't, because they don't want the teachers to count in the head count. They don't want to deal with the fact that teachers' pay isn't equitable with other people that have similar skills, et cetera. But they can pay $11,500 if they want and handle the employment responsibilities themselves. But almost nobody chooses that option, or they do 1 year and then they say, oh, forget it, for $1,500 you do that. And then, you know, it's also nice, you don't want those teachers ending up on the unemployment claims or any of that. They don't want to sponsor teachers the next year if that happens. The exception in the pricing is that our nonprofit research partners and universities pay just the teacher's stipend, and in most cases the grant. The reason for that is our universities are using their federal research grants to fund the teachers. It's usually we're helping them make the case that hosting a teacher is a great way to meet their education outreach obligations. So at Stanford, at Berkeley, at these various places, they have a lot of research grants from mostly the National Science Foundation, but also the National Institutes of Health or Howard Hughes, various different, and most of them have an education outreach obligation, whether they pay much attention to that or not. We help those organizations, if they need to apply for the supplementary money that they can use to fund the teacher. But for the most part, it's limited to $10,000, and their university grabs 35% of that money off the top, so there just isn't enough. Plus, they usually have restrictions in their federal grants that prevent them from paying it to another organization. They can pay it to the teacher, but they can't pay it to IISME. So we supplement that. So you can see on the sources of income, the big blue section is what our fellowship hosts pay. The next biggest section is our contributions and grants. So even though $13,000 sounds like a lot of money, and it is, we operate in a very high cost area. Our staff is expensive. They're well trained and paid well, and so we need to subsidize both the research fellowships and just also every fellowship subsidized to the tune of about $2,000 per fellowship. The university ones then are subsidized more, $5,500, $6,500 per fellowship. So we're bringing in a lot of foundation funding to supplement what the companies are paying. Then we also benefit from a lot of in-kind support. As I mentioned, we're housed inside of a high-tech company. I head up IBM and HP for our computers, our printers. We hit up WebEx for donated Skype. We get other people to print our brochures. I mean, you know, like all good nonprofit education people, if there's somebody else who could pay for it, we go that route whenever possible. Our biggest expense is the teacher stipends. So as I mentioned, we put the teachers on our payroll. Over half of our $2.6 million budget, which goes up and down. So every year it depends on how many fellowships. When it's a good year, it's bigger. When it's a bad year, it's smaller. And we can serve some years not as many teachers, in which case our expenses are also lower. Most of our expenses are variable, not fixed, so that helps us. Obviously, if we don't have 200 teachers, we don't need to pay 200 teachers. So we have pretty modest fixed expenses. Our program's pretty big. So we have, it's about 600, 700,000 is our fixed project, our fixed operational budget, but that does include some in-kind, and again, that's a staff of 7 or 8 people. So that's a lot more than what you'd need to get something like this off the ground in the beginning. So the most of the money goes back out to the teachers in the form of stipends and grants, then staff that's operating the program and the educational services, and a very small percentage of our budget goes to the fundraising and the management. Mostly because almost all of us provide direct services. So that's my summer fellowship talk, and I just have a couple of other programs I wanted to tell you about far more briefly. Our Future Connections program is actually on hiatus. This is a program that we used to offer for many, many years, and it had a completely different funding model. Excuse me, school districts and foundations and corporate sponsors were paying us to provide this program. It was a one-day exposure to industry, and it's a lot better than no exposure. But we would bring 35 to 40 teachers into an industry setting. There would be a company overview, STEM panels where people who work there talk about how they use science or math in their work, job shadowing, and then we do a short sort of education transfer. How can anything you saw today affect how you teach or what you teach? That program, you can tell I'm much less enthusiastic talking about it. It was okay, But it didn't have the transformational effect of a whole summer working side by side. It was a field trip, and it felt like a field trip. We did adjust the model as we went along, and it used to be teachers of all subject areas. And that was really unwieldy because you have, you know, the second grade teacher, the seventh grade English teacher, and the 12th grade physics teacher, and you're sitting there trying to talk about what did you see and how will you know, it didn't work so as well as we wanted. So we switched to a subject area specific model that worked a lot better. So we then bring in all math teachers, and then all the people on the panel would be people talking about how they use mathematics in their work, and all of the job shadowing would be with people who either were hired for their mathematical expertise or weren't and thought they never even liked math, but in fact used a lot of math in the course of their work. The real reason that we stopped operating that program, I call it on hiatus. I don't know if we'll ever breathe new life back into it. But at the time, schools had money for professional development, and they actually contracted with us. So they would do an annual contract for a certain amount of money, and then they could send as many of their teachers. We would have 50 to 60 trips a year, and they could send as many of their teachers as they wanted for a fixed amount, or other people sort of paid by the teacher numbers, et cetera. So that sort of fell apart as all the money for teacher professional development disappeared. The other thing that we started just not feeling good about the program, because we were pulling teachers out of school during the school day, which doesn't feel good. Especially, we have a real acute shortage of qualified substitutes. So when there's nobody to substitute at a physics class. There's nobody to substitute in AP calculus. So the kids are just watching movies or doing, you know, something dumb while their teacher's gone. And that just started not feeling good. We started also actually having to raise the money to pay the schools for their substitutes. Because it was like, if you're going to take my teacher, you better pay for the sub. So the program was getting more expensive, had fewer funding, and we just philosophically just didn't feel right about pulling those teachers. So for us, the summer fellowship program is a much better fit. We have one other program that is alive and well that I wanted to mention to you because it's a different model completely, but it's having incredible results. It's our research collaborative. We have a strong partnership with Intel Corporation. And they came to us, actually, because we've been working together since 1986. Their U.S. education manager said, you know, we really want kids doing more inquiry-based science. We want more labs in the classroom. We want people to start developing research classes. And we want more kids participating, Intel, not surprisingly, the sponsor of the science fair, in our science fairs. And what are you going to do? How are you going to make that happen? So we sat around and thought about what we might do, and we came up with the concept of the research collaborative. And it started in just 3 years ago. We're in our third year now, to provide high school science teachers with the supports they need to increase the rigor and frequency of science inquiry and research in their classrooms, schools, and districts. It's a very cool program. The goals are to increase students' scientific literacy and critical thinking skills, to help teachers successfully facilitate both the academic learning of the science and also the applied, how to apply that knowledge to novel problems. And then ultimately, our big pie in the sky goal is to help shift this change to become institutionalized within those schools, districts, and hopefully the whole education community. So that's the goals of the program. We do that by providing 4 primary offerings to the teachers. So we recruit a bunch of teachers who are interested, or at least kind of interested, in doing this. We provide them with on-demand consulting and expertise. We're doing that in a number of different ways. So we have a person facilitating the program. She's an expert in this sort of thing, and so she's available by email and phone all the time to those teachers. We also have identified experts within the education community. So we have hired as consultants some teachers who also help guide the other teachers. They're part of the research collaborative, but they're also part of the team that provides the teachers with the expertise. That's really important because teachers don't usually want to admit what they don't get about how to do this. And they don't want to do it in professional development stuff at their district. They don't want to go to their science department chair and say, I don't really get how to do this. Or I thought I got how to do this, and now I hit this barrier, and I don't know how to move forward. So it's really nice in a trusted professional community. We have face-to-face quarterly meetings where they talk really nuts and bolts kinds of things about what they're doing. We also have a collaborative online community where, because it was started with funding from the Intel Foundation, we're using the Intel Engage site, and we have all kinds of resources, and teachers are uploading resources and downloading them, and we are, and it's really a vibrant online community. And then finally, and probably almost as important as the consulting, we're providing teachers with stipends. We recognize that this teaching science well is hard, and getting started is hard, and supervising students after school and student-driven research takes extra time, and the stipends aren't huge, but it's enough to say to the teachers that we recognize that it's a lot of extra work and that your time has value. So the stipends are typically $500, $1,000, $1,500 a year, depending on the scope of the projects. Also critically important, we provide supply funding for the teachers. So in the beginning, we work with the teachers to develop a project plan. What do you want to try and tackle this year? And then we set an appropriate budget and we dole it out as we go along. It's really making a big difference. So we're in our third year. We now have financial support from 3 different foundation funders. Because of our involvement with Intel, although we're focused in the Silicon Valley area of California, other people at Intel got wind of the program and asked us to come help school districts in Phoenix and Austin. So we now are supporting 64 teachers from 28 schools in 9 districts in Silicon Valley, Austin, and Phoenix. Wow, that's like impossible to read. But anyway, what we're really proud about is that we have documented dramatic increases, and I mean dramatic, in the number of standalone science research courses, which was a real priority for Intel, the number of inquiry-based labs being offered in existing science courses, the number of lunchtime and after-school science clubs, the number and diversity of students participating in those clubs, because one of the things, we live in a very, very ethnically diverse area, and there's certain ethnic groups that are well represented in the science clubs, and there's others that are absolutely not represented. So teachers might have a goal about getting more girls in, or they might want to get more black students or more Latino students, or whatever their goals might be, but we're documenting incredible increases in all of those areas. Also, the number and diversity of the students doing science research projects, whether they get to the science fair level or not, they're doing those in those lunchtime and after-school clubs. We have more and more teachers supporting sophisticated student-driven research, because oftentimes these kids, I mean, they're brilliant and they're suggesting these things that are beyond the subject matter knowledge of the teacher. And we can help those teachers find mentors in industry or universities that can not only give the teacher kind of some quick study on the side, but also serve as a mentor either just via email or in person, or help them use equipment in their lab. So we help hook them up with all the kind of resources that otherwise are really a barrier. The teachers who participate in the research collaborative, they themselves are doing these things, but they're also able to share these resources with all the other teachers in their school. So it's infectious and growing. We also have seen a real increase in the number of students competing in the regional, state, and national science fairs, which was the ultimate goal of Intel when they asked us to come up with some kind of a program to do all this. So anyway, that's my spiel. I did want to show you a quick video before we move into question and answer discussion and whatever else you want to talk about. I like including that picture. That's what 20 teachers at Lockheed looks like with their mentors. That's after one of their orientation sessions. So I mentioned Lockheed's really one of our great sponsors. Let's see, how do I do this? Is that? Yeah, well, no, I'm trying to find where it is on there. Oh, there it is. Ooh. Is it mute? Yeah. Oh, it's pretty exciting that way, too. Maybe we should go back. Thank you for figuring that out. That's all right. We haven't missed anything. Okay. It's all right.
It doesn't.
Can you hear it?
We'll just keep blasting.
Well, you've heard her before anyway.
The gap between education and business. IISME exists to try and address the critical needs for our highly skilled workforce, and it pairs teachers with mentors in industry and research labs.
have a lot of fun when the kids have a lot of fun. Every day we go into our classrooms and we ask our students to learn something new. And so we also need to be ready to learn things that are new, that might be useful in our teaching and make me a more effective teacher. And this is really a unique opportunity that I look forward to every summer that I do it.
I've gone to many professional developments, and they all brought something to the table, but there's something about 8 weeks of hands-on experience. It's like nothing else. The retention level is amazing. What I'm able to take back immediately is amazing. You go back on fire. People think you go back tired, but you go back really ready to spill it all out and tell somebody what you just learned.
One of the benefits of the IISME Summer Fellowship Program is not only does it improve the skills and subject area knowledge of our teachers, but it actually keeps well-qualified teachers in the classroom. We've done some research, studied the teachers who've held fellowships all the way back to our founding in 1985, and we found that teachers who've held IISME fellowships stay in teaching at 4 times the rate of their peers in the state and nation.
This year we sponsored 20 teachers in our company. Each of those teachers bring with them a different perspective, new ideas and enthusiasm, and it really is contagious among our employees. We continue to partner with IISME year after year because of the measurable impact that we've had on not just the teachers, but the quality of the math and science curricula in the local community.
What the IISME opportunity gives me are new tools to take into the curriculum, and it has had profound positive impact on the learning of my students. When they were using some of the tools, they were able to compare, contrast, think outside the box. I have never seen the kids as involved, engaged, and able to reason in ways I just hadn't seen before.
What IISME does is changes the teacher from someone who is showing students around the store and they're just able to look in through window shopping to actually saying, let's go inside. I've been inside and I'm going to tell you what it's like on the inside of the science and engineering enterprise. That's a huge contribution. If we had 10 or 20% of all the teachers in the nation having done this kind of real-world experience, it would have a transformative effect on our student population.
What's amazing about IISME is that we don't just look at 200 teachers being trained each year. We multiply that those 200 teachers are each teaching about 100 to 150 kids a year. So we're having a direct impact through IISME on 25 to 30,000 Silicon Valley students every year, that they're getting the education they need to be better equipped for the 21st century innovation economy jobs that we're creating.
We know that the IISME Summer Fellowship Program is such a valuable program. It's in everyone's best interest to ensure that our students are getting the very best education, that our teachers have the support and experiences that they need to do a good job. We just hope to continue to expand our services, continue to shift to meet the changing needs of teachers, and serve more and more teachers in the years to come. It's always kind of embarrassing to show a video that you're in, but I think we're good. So, I don't know if we need to turn those speakers. I guess we don't know how. That's right, they're kind of humming in the background. But I don't know if anybody has any questions, want to ask anything about how the program works, any of the details, or...
talked a lot about getting teachers into the business, but I would imagine that you'd have to work with the businesses and getting those people ready to have another adult working with them that may or may not know everything about the business world.
Yes, absolutely, because and that's a real challenge. Yes. So we offer, I mean, from the sort of basics, we offer an orientation for teachers. We have a mentor orientation that talks about, remember, your teacher's spending 10% of their time on curriculum, and remember, you can't hire them, and remember this, remember that. And a lot of that's because these companies are big, and I've spent months talking to somebody up here, but by the time you get to the hiring manager, they don't necessarily know who this person is, why they're there, or any of that. So we do take a lot of time, and this about this time of year all the way until the teachers start in June, there's interaction back and forth between the host organization. So from the very beginning, we have a sponsor agreement. This is the sort of legal icky stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think about, but it's critically important, that lays out all of the, what's our role, what's your role, what's the purpose of this program, your commitment not to try and solicit this teacher for employment, how we'll deal with your intellectual property. All those sorts of things are very big issues, and the non-disclosure agreements and this and that. And all, so we work that through their legal departments, which is a lot of fun. We're also at the same time starting to, we have two roles that we define within a company. They don't always have those people, but we look for somebody to coordinate the program, and then so we call it IISME coordinator, and then we have IISME mentors, and the mentors are really the hiring managers. So some of the work goes, depending on how many people they host, some of the work goes through the coordinator, where the coordinator really understands the program, starts recruiting people within the company. Sometimes it's a put your hand up if you're interested, something goes out in the company newsletter, do you want to do this? Part of the reason Lockheed's my favorite sponsor in the whole world is they just tell their employees, you are doing this, and you're hosting this many teachers in your department, and you'll have your project descriptions by this date, your teachers hired by this date, and you will do this. I know that's not the ideal way to get somebody to do something, but we like it because then they always get everything done on time. But we're sort of nudging people along. It's not their primary responsibility. So we have a project, we have a really robust website that has sample projects, ideas, a mentor resource center. We work with them to develop an appropriate project, because it's scoping the project's really important. If they pick something that's just not at all realistic for 8 weeks, nobody's going to be satisfied. So we try and help them through that process. Just because I didn't talk about it at all, we post it on our website. Then teachers can see the different projects. They can express interest in certain ones. Then we assist the mentors through the process of interviewing their top candidates. We suggest that they start with phone interviews. And just in the course of all of that interaction, we're helping them to understand what the teachers are looking for. The teachers do a good job of letting them know why they're eager. They express interest, and they'll say, you know, this fellowship is perfect because I'm teaching a biotech course for the first time next year, and I have no experience, and the kind of work that you're doing is exactly what I need to know, and I don't even know how to pipette, help, you know. And then, so they, in the course of those interviews, and then as they're working along, kind of get it. We would like to do more in the area of preparing STEM professionals to work with teachers, but the truth is we can't get their attention.
Do the sponsors pick the project, or?
Mm-hmm. So the sponsors, because in part because of our fee-for-service model and just because we need to make it sponsor-friendly, they decide what departments to put the teachers. They decide what projects to be offered. For the most part, it works out great. Sometimes we get projects that are either way too high level or way too low level. We say that the teachers can do anything, come in and do anything, as long as it doesn't have, you know, we remind them that they're professionals and that they're not to just be doing copying and running around getting lunch. More often, it's the other end. Like, we'd like somebody with a PhD in bioinformatics, and they're going to work on this, and it's like, whoa, you know, that's not exactly who's in our applicant pool. So, and that's a challenge. The universities are particularly focused on the degree the teacher has, and that's a challenge, because your physics or chemistry teacher is who you want to work in those physics or chemistry labs regardless of what they majored in, and they may not have a degree in chemistry. The academic partners are much less likely to even talk to a chemistry teacher who doesn't have a degree in chemistry. Our technical people are much more likely to want to talk to somebody who has a degree like them. And so some of our teachers have a degree in education, or a degree in instructional technology, or a degree in something else that they don't recognize, and so therefore they often don't value. But in the course of talking with teachers, you know, teachers, they're so perky, they're so bubbly, they win you over. But yes, they pick the project. We help them scope it if it's too ambitious. But what we usually tell our sponsors is to have several projects in mind, because they're going to be surprised at how efficient and effective the teachers are.
Now, in our county, we don't maybe have those large industries that you have there. Does your association look at maybe doing some affiliate working with other states, other counties, other districts, where maybe we may have one or two people that we can find a sponsor for?
Mm-hmm.
And then still tie that into your curriculum development and the whole process you have?
Well, it isn't something that we're currently doing, but it's certainly something that we would consider. When we took our research collaborative, we were all focused just on our region, and we were working in the areas that our foundation funders wanted us to work in. And when Austin said, "Can you come help us?" it turned out we really easily very could, because a lot of those resources are things that you can do from afar. In the case of some of our university people, they actually bring in teachers. So we get a lot of requests for, can we actually come spend the summer in California and work at Stanford or work at Lockheed or work at Intel or HP or one of those companies. And we're not able to provide housing and all of that sort of thing, but some of our university partners do bring in teachers from outside the area. And we accept that as a sponsor-driven request. But the opportunity for partnership is always there. Lockheed's asked us to consider that too, and we're open to it. It's not something we're currently providing.
You know, the 165 to 190 chosen for fellowships, how many would be more high school age teachers, 9 to 12, and how does it affect K-8?
Great question. So we recruit teachers of all grade levels, all subject areas, public schools, private schools, everything but home schools. And so the sponsors are then picking the teachers they want. And because of this emphasis on what kind of a degree the teachers have, it swings more heavily to middle and high school teachers being selected. We do, so about 50-60% of the teachers selected every year are high school. About 25% are middle school, and the other 25% are a blend of elementary and community college. We accept four-year college faculty, but they usually have research and other things to do that are more lucrative over this summer. And it's a really interesting question about K-8. We do a lot better job with grade 7 and up. The elementary school teachers who participate find incredible value. It's more of a sales pitch to the sponsor to understand that it's important for teachers of those grade levels to see the workforce, because they think, you know, the closer you are to graduating, my next worker is who I care about. They don't often realize without some education that actually kids are getting turned on or turned off to science and math in elementary school. And if they have a teacher that isn't excited about teaching it, then they're going to, you know, be all that less likely to be in algebra in time to be in this and be in that. But that we almost never have a sponsor ask us for an elementary school teacher, yet almost 25% placed are, and it's a testament to what good salespersons they are.
Calculate the other direct and indirect costs associated with that. So what's the total cost of the teacher?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and the short answer is no. And it depends, of course, on the organization, because some are saying, I get return on investment every year. I actually, you know, would pay a contractor much more than that for the work I got out of that IISME teacher. Some people swear it's a bargain. Now others, I mean Lockheed in particular, has a huge overhead rate. So anybody they bring in, it's like 3 times that is what they're charged in terms of their impact at the company. So it's like $25,000 or some crazy number like that, depending on the organization. But we do have people who, you know, they support our mission, but they bring in a teacher for skills or short-term projects. And they are seeing that it's, you know, quarter the cost of a contractor. We have to be careful, of course, since we serve both teachers and the business community, to talk about what great cheap labor they are. That doesn't go over too well with the teachers. So, don't look at that page of the website. But you know, lots of people say that they have skills that are comparable to contractors they would have hired for 2 or 3 times the amount.
Can you talk a little bit about the component that you said after the internship, when they're starting to embed what they've learned in their what that looks like from where they're at?
Absolutely. So most of our formal work with them sort of ends in August. They've done their peer-reviewed curriculum. They've gotten to a certain place on the rubric in order to qualify for all the grants. They've gotten a lot of guidance about developing that curriculum from expert curriculum developers over the summer. They have all these ideas of new teaching strategies from working with their peers, and then we sort of launch them out. Quite honestly, there's a fairly limited amount of academic year support. To the extent they want to stay connected, we're happy to stay connected. They can. They build relationships not only with the organizations that host them and their mentor and other people in the groups that they continue to go back to. So those people become subject area experts for them, come in our classroom speakers. Often they can take their kids on a field trip if anybody can afford buses anymore and go to the company, that sort of thing. The teachers also build relationships with each other. And that's really important in an area where you don't have a professional learning community supportive of the kind of risk taking that these teachers are game for when they come out. For instance, the AP physics teacher down in Monterey is the only AP physics teacher in her school. And then, to meet these other teachers that teach the same subject area and they develop relationships over the summer and those continue. Formally, we don't have a lot going on. We've talked a lot about bringing the teachers back. It's really hard to get teachers' attention during the school year. And get eek. Yeah, you winter a little differently than we do in California, but so most of it's informal.
And so that 10% of the 90-10 is the time that they would spend not on the job, but on the development of the curriculum.
Right. So they get paid for 40 hours of work, and the sponsor gets 32 hours a week. So the sponsor is also paying for the time that the teacher is working on curriculum, attending IISME meetings, orientation, our end of summer celebration, working with their peer coaches, all of that. And usually, depending on how ambitious the teacher is with the curriculum development that they select, they can get all of that done in the 32 paid hours that they have. Many teachers, though, are far more ambitious and take on a lot more, and then they are adding extra time on their own to reach that level.
Your programs are 8 weeks long. Have you experimented with any shorter periods?
Yes, we have. We actually offer 7 or 8 week at this time. We've offered in hookup situations like 5 weeks. We really think that it takes, there's two tensions around that. One is the teachers would love a much shorter period of time. The sponsors would like 12 or 15 weeks to make it worth their time. So it's really driven based on a compromise of what on a practical basis will work. We do think that it takes at least 7 weeks to get really immersed in there and to become a meaningful part of that team. And because the first few weeks you're in training, you're trying to figure out what's going on. You really start hitting your stride at that 4th or 5th week, and towards the end, they're really feeling the kind of competency that re-energizes them and makes them feel like, hey, I could be doing this work. I chose to be a teacher because it's more important, but I could be a scientist. I could be an engineer. But then we have some returning teachers that come back for another fellowship, and they're only available 5 weeks, and their sponsor says, I don't care, I want them. And then we reduce the education-related deliverable because they just don't have as much time. But even with the shorter time periods, we insist on the 10% of their time going to the education transfer piece.
So if we're looking to start something up, just on purely from a time to get off the ground, I would imagine you'd recommend 1 or 2 really supportive businesses so you're working with maybe a few teachers working with one, because you're going to have to do there's a lot of learning up front.
Right. And so you need time, and ideally have at least 2 organizations willing to give it a try. And of course different externship programs or other things in different kinds of regions that don't have the sort of corporate headquarters and everything that Silicon Valley has. You can have much lower stipends, much lower, cost to the business. And I do recommend a couple of teachers at a location. Teachers are social folks, and it can be pretty lonely if you're the only teacher. I mean, hopefully people welcome you, and you have lunch with people, and you meet people, and you get a chance to talk to them about how they got into their careers and all that. But it's just like being the new kid in school, right? It's really nice to have a buddy. So when you have 2 teachers, at least at one organization, we try. But we have probably 10, 15 of our sponsors that host one every year. Turns out they're not. The fact that Jennifer thinks they should be hosting multiple isn't really what drives them. Surprising.
So I'm assuming the teachers, if it's 8 weeks, are working a full week schedule.
Yes, and that's another challenge because the teachers are happy to work 40 hours a week. That's not really the problem. They're also very happy to be paid for 40 hours a week. And they love that they get paid to do curriculum. That makes them feel valued and professional. The challenge is related to the fact that the IRS says we have to treat them as exempt hourly employees, non-exempt hourly employees. So where they're professionals during the school year and all the people they're working with are exempt, so 50 hours, no lunch break, business trips, all that stuff that happens, we have to treat the teachers as hourly, and that's a pain because nobody is used to that. So if they want to have to go to the dentist one day and work 6 hours and they want to just work 10 the next, we can't, and we have to pay them overtime, and then we have to charge their sponsor overtime, which doesn't go over very well. We do have teachers that travel. They want to take them to a conference, or they want to take them on business trips, and they want to do that. So we have travel insurance. We've figured out how to do the hourly rate for people who are flying across the country on business travel and that sort of thing. I have to say, in the beginning, you don't have to worry about all that, but some of all that jazz about employment law and the sponsor agreements and the teacher agreements, and it's taken on a life of its own. I mean, in the beginning when we found it, it was just a handshake. You take these teachers, we'll pay them, it's good, I'll pay them, you pay them, whoever pays them, it's all good, and it was a lot easier. We take sometimes months to negotiate these sponsor agreements with the companies. You get a team of 6 of HP's top lawyers working through every single word in that sponsor agreement, yeah. Indemnification, they want us to indemnify them. It's like, we can't indemnify you. I mean, for one, I only learned what the word means a few years ago. And then once I did, I was like, oh my God, I've been saying I would indemnify a company like Intel. We'd go broke. We can't indemnify you. But so, yeah, but that isn't a problem right off. And, the idea of, those kinds of things don't have to be a big deterrent, but they do have to be in place, because if you get a teacher gets hurt, I mean, you have to make sure they're covered by workers' comp. And because we have teachers who say, I'll do this for free, just put me in there. We can't, because somebody has to have them on payroll in order to be able to get workers' comp. And they will not let somebody walk in that door who's not covered by workers' comp. And we have workplace injuries, teachers not sitting right, or we do this big ergo training, and you still have a teacher slumped over his laptop. Well, now he's got carpal tunnel, and now we have to go buy him a chair, and now we have to do this, and all these things. It's like, wait, we're teacher professional development. But yeah, it gets complicated.
And how did you derive with the $7,200?
Good question. It's just sort of where we ended up. It's always a tension between what sponsors will pay. Teachers would like to earn more. We try and stay sort of comparable to teaching summer school. The hourly rate, we're below the hourly rate for summer school. So our teachers are earning $22.50 an hour, which is less than what they earn teaching summer school. We have teachers from all kinds of districts, so of course they have all different pay rates. But overall, they end up making more. It's less per hour, but more for the summer. And the teachers are actually willing to do that trade-off anyway, because they like to work with adults. Most of the teachers say, I don't want to teach summer school. I want to go work with adults. I want to do this. I want to get the curriculum support. I want all these opportunities. So it has shifted over the years. The program used to be $5,000. And, whenever we've been able to get the funding in fellowship revenue, we up the teachers' grants and stipends.
Have you worked with any local universities for graduate credit hours for these teachers?
The teachers can elect to get graduate units if they want to, and our education director serves as the teacher of record. We actually, even before we were working in San Diego, we worked with the University of San Diego just because they were the easiest one to deal with. And the teachers submit reflection papers and things of that sort and get feedback on that, and they get units that help them move up the salary schedule. Not every teacher wants to do that. Not every teacher cares. So we don't make it mandatory. There's other similar kinds of programs that actually tie it to earning a master's degree or tie it to a year-long education program. We have a hard enough time getting the teachers' attention for 8 weeks, getting them to do additional things throughout the school year when they're busy with their robotics club and this and that, and everything else they're doing is really challenging. So yeah, I think they get 6 units of graduate credit if they elect to, which does make a difference on that salary scale.
You said your expansion to Southern California is not moving. What is it?
It's hard. Part of the reason that was easy to launch IISME is because it was driven by the sponsors. Pushing this program out is much harder than responding to willing partners. One of the gentlemen in the video wouldn't matter to anybody in Lake County, but he's the CEO of the biggest trade association in our region. It was founded by David Packard. 370 of the biggest employers in our region participate in that. And we have a formal partnership with them that came over time and, you know, a certain amount of work. And they now set a goal for how many IISME teachers their members will host every year. And they have it at their CEO level. They're sending messages out to the CEOs of all their member companies saying, remember, we support IISME. Please sign up today. That makes a huge difference. So when I started trying to move into Southern California, I started by trying to develop partnerships with the trade associations down there. And I think maybe mistakenly focused on aerospace and defense at first because they're so tied to the U.S. workforce. And that part all made good sense, and there's good identifiable trade associations, and they let me come speak to their board and, you know, try to get them revved up. But also it coincided with severe cuts in the defense industry, and that was the part that wasn't so smart about that strategy. But so part of it is not having that kind of support. The partnership is critical. I think the business community has to want to give this a try. And once they do, they like it. So the companies that agreed to host teachers the first time in San Diego are now on their third year of hosting them. The companies that agreed to do it in Los Angeles are continuous sponsors. It's a winning program. They like it, but it's like we're selling a product they don't need. So if you don't, and it's really hard to get to the right person. Hopefully with your organization, the relationships you have in the business community are already with the right people. Cold calling, trying to get the VP of HR to say, I have something new to add to your plate. And you'll have to sell it up and you'll have to sell it down. It's going to be awesome. You know, and they're like, yeah, no thanks. By the way, I hung up when you were halfway through that really long name that nobody understands. So, and peer-to-peer works really well. So the VP from Lockheed that was featured in the video, he's willing to talk to the frenemies, the competitors, and say, hey, Raytheon, you should be doing this. Hey, Boeing, you should be doing this. Here's why Lockheed does this. And you need that. We've benefited from that kind of executive level peer-to-peer because they'll take his calls well before they'll take mine. But it's the selling part. We were asked to come to Sacramento, which is our state's capital, but a much smaller business community. The companies aren't headquartered there. There's far fewer of them. And they asked us to partner, and we did a little bit lower teacher stipend, a little bit lower fellowship costs to try and make it more palatable in that community. For one, you could recruit the teachers with a lower stipend. We would have trouble recruiting teachers with a lower stipend. So, but it went okay, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. You really need business partners who are willing to drive it. And I do wonder, the fact that we have such a high cost of living area helps the demand from the teachers. They need the money. They need to work over the summer, especially the younger teachers. They still have roommates. They've got rent to pay, if not a mortgage. And so being able to wave around $8,200 when we're recruiting them is really, really important. I don't know if there's a region where teachers' salaries that are not so much lower than other people. So in our region, a teacher's salary with the same background in education is making a third of what somebody else is making. So the fact that they need income helps us to recruit so many eager teachers because we turn away 2/3 of them. They apply, they interview, they do all that, and some don't ever even get a call, and some aren't selected. So that's one consideration too when you're thinking about what you might offer in terms of compensation, what you need to offer in terms of getting the teachers there, and then also how little you can offer so that you can reduce the cost of the program. Everybody's ready to leap up and start a teacher internship program? It sounds so exciting and fun.
Any other questions?
Well, thank you for your patience. I know that was a lot of talking.
Thank you.